Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and welcome to No Budget Reviews, the series where we go around the country finding cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and filming them with absolutely no money at all. So we have to use my phone, no microphones, no fancy DSLRs, nothing like that. Just good honest cars that you can buy for very little money and you can enjoy driving. Oh viewers, I never thought we'd actually see the day so soon, but here we are once again with yet another Daewoo on No Budget Reviews. This is a 1996 Daewoo Nexia 1.5 GLXi Automatic. The automatics are actually even rarer than the manual ones. They probably less than 5 of them left taxed in this country. This is owned by Stan, who also owns the Hyundai that you can see behind there. We'll be having a look at that one later. But if you'll remember, about 6 weeks or so ago, I drove a manual one of these in Northampton, which is owned by Danny. Danny's a friend of Stan, which isn't surprising. There is a community for these cars still. This is a slightly earlier car. This is a 1996, and there are a couple of changes actually between the earlier and later cars. First of all, we'll have a look in the boot. You can also use the release inside the car. Stan's very sensibly got himself one of these as stop locks because these cars are not known for their theft resistance. Still a very, very big boot for the time. Obviously the Mark II Astra when it came out in 1984, and this car basically is a Mark II Vauxhall Astra or a Cadet or Pontiac Le Mans or Passport Optima or whatever you want to call it. But really this is like a sort of facelift that the Mark II Astra never got for the 90s. And lift that up. Nice full-size spare wheel with the jack. Very practical car really. This was available as a saloon and a 3-door hatchback as well. You can see we've got the original type of plates that would have come with the car, because Daewoo didn't actually have dealers. They had what were called motor shows that were all owned by Daewoo themselves. And so the customer assistants, I think they were called, were not on commission. So yes, the way they were selling these cars was actually in some ways more interesting than the cars themselves when we first came into this country in January 1995. Unlike some of these older Korean cars, we do have the wipers on the right and the lights and indicators on the left. Air conditioning, of course, because this is the luxury model, the GLXi. One thing you'll notice if you have just previously watched the video on Danny's car is that the upholstery is completely different. Stan's got some seat covers on here to preserve the seats, and also we've got an electric sunroof. I'm not actually going to use this because apparently sometimes it does leak if you use it, so we're not going to use that today. Original Daewoo cassette, of course. Very familiar looking kind of dashboard in terms of the sort of layout of it, but a lot of minor controls are not the same as on an Astra at all. These sort of oval switches are nothing like it. This automatic gearbox lever looks very similar. It is only a 4-speed auto as well. Reasonable size glove box, driver's airbag. All Daewoo actually had a driver's airbag from the word go in 1995, which was very impressive. Not all of them in other countries got them, but in this country we had them. Obviously this car had a very, very long life, or the platform did. It had a life of 32 years, 84 to 2016, when the last day, I think it was called the Cielo in Uzbekistan, was sold. They must have really, really liked it. Right, let's have a look under the bonnet, shall we? This is Daewoo's own version of the General Motors Family 1 engine, later known as the Ecotec engine. In this particular car, it has twin overhead cams and it develops 84 horsepower. There was a 75 horsepower version of this car as well. I think that was single point fuel injection. This is multi-point fuel injection. That was in the GLI model. This being the luxury model means that you get a bit more power. Also, we've got standard ABS. There is the massive ABS pump. Those are actually often more expensive than the cost of a car if they fail. So if you're going to buy one of these cars, I'd suggest you make sure that pump's working. Also, make sure the cam belt's been changed. This is a cam belt engine. And something else as well. A lot of General Motors products of this era, Mark II, Mark III Cavaliers and things of the same, they have a problem where the steering goes through the bulkhead, and they tend to sort of sometimes break there. And so just make sure, I mean, a new steering rack for one of these cars is quite cheap. It's not difficult to put in, but that particular issue is something just to bear in mind. Other than that, it's a pretty well-known and pretty reliable engine if you look after it, like most of these things are. And actually, this Family 1 engine went out of production in the last 5 years. It's pretty amazing, really. Classic sort of familiar Astra Mark II design with these, you know, big windows in this. I think this is called the D pillar right here. Not going to get in the back today because I'll have to move too many things, but I went in the back of Danny's one if you want to see that. Electric rear windows and the very peculiar little sort of ashtray here. Also got rear headrest, which is fantastic. Not a huge amount of space in here, but it is kind of similar, I'd say, to a first generation Proton, and that's a car I'm quite familiar with, and I'm hoping actually to do a full review of one of those on the channel quite soon as well. Right, so on the road in a Daewoo Nexia Automatic. The automatic gearbox actually has 4 speeds rather than 3, and I remember actually reading years ago that it's only a 3-speed box, which of course is not correct. It is a 4-speed gearbox, and it's actually perfectly smooth. It's an old torque converter, probably a General Motors unit I would imagine, and it feels absolutely fine. It removes this quite kind of bulky and sort of nasty gear change that actually a lot of General Motors cars had in the 1980s, and the Daewoo inherited one of those gearboxes, and it really wasn't very good. But this feels absolutely fine. I imagine a lot of these cars were bought by older people because of the warranty package that they came with. The Nexia was only sold in this country from about January 95 till September 97, so not a very long production run, and then replaced with the Daewoo Lanos, which, you know, wasn't particularly my favourite type of car. I have driven one, and honestly I prefer the Nexia to the Lanos, really. With 84 horsepower from this engine, it feels perfectly good. I mean, this car is approaching 25 years old, so the suspension's a little bit on the worn side, but that's what you'd expect, and for the sort of money that Stan paid for this car, it's actually fine. Just got to remember that the brakes are not like the ones in my Sanyong, which have electronic servo assistance. This have servo assistance, but it's a vacuum type, so it's not quite as good. But just for sort of driving around, it's absolutely fine. It's very easy to drive. Still got this incredibly vague steering that the Mark II Astra was known for, and so the Nexia was too. The ownership package on one of these Nexias was remarkable. As I've already mentioned, we've got standard driver's airbag in this car and standard ABS. That was on all Daewoo's from the time that they entered the country. Also, this car we've got air conditioning, we've got electric sunroof, electric windows. One we don't have, for some reason, I found this last time as well, is electric mirrors. I don't think you could even get them as an option. Also got an adjustable steering column, which I'm not sure Astras generally came with. I might be wrong about that, but that's obviously very good. And we've got front fog lights too in this car. Right, we seem to be stuck in a bit of traffic now, so I'll come back to you in a little while once we've actually managed to make some progress.
Eine Stunde später.
Certainly, they had an amazing ownership package with 3 years of roadside assistance, 3-year warranty and 3-year servicing as standard. You also got a free courtesy car when yours needed servicing or any sort of repair. Absolutely remarkable. One thing I'm just conscious of is into an automatic, and now we're on a dual carriageway. It's just it isn't easy to get the right sort of ratio that you want. You have to wait for the gearbox to catch up with things to a certain extent. I'm hoping it'll change up in a second as well, and it'll feel a little bit better. There we go. But yeah, we've still got this very woolly steering, which feels a bit different from modern cars that all have really, really light steering and don't seem to be connected to the wheels. But this feels different because it's not an electric setup, it's a hydraulic setup. Certainly in comparison with a first generation Proton, and those did date back to the same sort of time as one of these, the Mitsubishi Mirage, Colt, Lancer, whatever you want to call it, that the original Proton were based on, were first released in 1983, and the Mark II Astra or Opel Kadett or Pontiac Le Mans or whatever you want to call it was released in 84. So, you know, they were based on cars that were similar in age, and I suppose targeted at the same sort of people. Much more equipment though in the day with double safety features, and you could get the air conditioning and of course the rear electric windows, but I don't think you get any kind of first generation Proton. Proton has better steering than this, but the handling of those is a little bit on the kind of roly-poly side. This isn't too bad. If you really wanted to, I'm sure you could stick a red top engine into one of these. You could fit some springs from a Astra GTE, if that's what you wanted to do, but I doubt most people would have been interested in that kind of thing. So if this is an automatic, and I'm sure probably owned by an older person, given it's done 42,000 miles in just under 25 years, it's far better to just sort of sit back and relax, really. And, you know, predictably, just like the last time, I quite like it. Funny how rare these cars have become. They weren't particularly common when they started selling them, I don't think, but it's a strange thing when something drops to a value of well below £1,000, and you know this car didn't cost anywhere near £1,000, and then just they're not worth a huge amount because there's not a lot of classic interest in these at the moment, despite their rarity. But I just find it very, very charming indeed. Stan and I were talking a bit earlier on about whether or not it's more difficult to get parts for a Mark II Astra or one of these, and you know, a lot of the parts are exactly the same. For example, I think somebody's had a go at fitting a Mark II Astra wing mirror to the right hand side. Later cars had different mirrors, but this has got the original Mark II Astra type mirrors, and someone's had to use a sort of screw to get it on, which is hilarious. But it's just a car that you just don't see anymore. You don't see these. Also, this colour. You don't see many cars in this colour anymore, even. And it just reminds me of a time, you know, when I went to the motor show in 1994. It was in Birmingham, and I saw Daewoo for the first time. It just reminds me of a time when lots of cars were this colour or a similar colour, and you know, to have this level of equipment in a car was quite extraordinary. The GLI, of course, had less equipment, and you know, that started from I think about £8,500. It didn't have electric windows, and it didn't have air conditioning at the start. Later ones I think did, and it didn't look quite as nice as one of these. But any of these at all now is just a reminder of what motoring used to be like 25 to 30 years ago, and it's wonderful. So, viewers, should you consider buying a Daewoo Nexia? Well, I really like these cars. They're incredibly nostalgic for me, and just driving around Kettering with Stan in the back today, has just again reminded me of actually how much I like them. If anything, mechanically this car's slightly better than Danny's one. The steering's a little bit tighter. It's still got that same slightly woolly feeling, but that's just the way that they were. It's not the most commodious car by 2020 standards in the back, but by 1980s or early 90s standards, it's not bad. This one actually is in quite good condition, and there are only about 40 of them left taxed on the road. So if you want one, I suppose now's the time to buy one. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Thank you once again to Stan for lending me his car. I suppose you'll be seeing the Hyundai that he has on the channel very soon as well. So be sure to subscribe for that. Leave a comment below. Like this video. Visit my Facebook page, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, and also Instagram, instagram.com/Lloyd_vehicle_consulting. Thank you.